Great. Now I will show that the switch case. So we have the switch there, and here we have the different case. If for cases at vehicles, we will get view at vehicles.php, and if for case car classification, we will get a car classification PHP view, and the default is the vehicles management view. Okay. Uh, for example, I will show that if we don't have anything, we will got the default case. But if we have had classification and add vehicles, we will got the add vehicles free and add car classification view. We can see the in the lower left corner the link with the K in the difference. Okay, so now I will explain how work the MPV. Um, so the vehicle controller uh, will call once different function from these PHP files. In the library connection will use the phpmotors connect function that have all the necessary information to connect with the database, and in the case that well have the password, the name, well, and if there is an error, we will redirect to a view that send tell us that we have an error. Okay. In our my model, we have a get classification function. Okay, and we have a PHP motors connect that call the function that is in connection. We are not using required ones in my model, but as all of these files are calling in the vehicles controller scope, they will work together. So for this reason, we can use the PHP motors connect function inside the get classification. So we say here, okay, I want the information that is in the classification name and classification ID column for the car classification tab. Okay, we use the next line to is a prepare statement. We execute the statement, and then we store the information in the classification. We close the connection with the database and we return the classification variable. Okay, and we will use these classification variables. Uh, well, here we call the function in the my model, and we create an add list variable where we create an add bar, the HTML element. We iterate over the different information of the type, or in this case, elements that are stored in the classification variable, and we use the not this variable to display the different category of the cars, like an add bar in our HTML with a PHP statement. Great. Well, also we use the same function to create a classification list variables, and we create a menu where we can see the different classifications. So here we create the the select element with the different options, and then we go in our form and we display this we display this information, in this case in the form of add vehicles by here. Okay, great. um in the vehicles model, um we create a rig new vehicles. We create two functions that work in the same way. We call to the PHP connect function and we say, okay, we want to insert in the inventory table, and we want to insert for these values, yes, um, these values. But here we don't write the values. We are writing the placeholders when the values will be stored in the future. Okay, so we use the prepare statement, and now we use the bind value and PDO statement connection to uh, say, okay, in this placeholder, set this value. Okay, well, this variable will restore the information of the an input the of the form. So in the INVE model placeholder, we want the INVE model variable, and we use the PDO connection to bind this value and to say, okay, this will be a string or an int or other kind of data, and we use the PDO connection to have a connection with the database and bind this value and um, execute uh, different queries or statement in a database in the same time. Yes. So the PDA connection is very important for that. Well, after that, we bind the difference value from our input. Um, we insert the data here, and we need to row change variables that will return the rows that was will be modified in your database. Yes. For in this case, we will modify one row. Okay. So we need to get one row change. We'll close the database intervention. If we don't get one row change, that means that um, the operation was not sorted. Okay, and the rect classification work in the same way, but we'll use this function for the car classification and this function for add new variables. Great. So suppose that we want to add a car classification. We have the input here, and we have the input. So if we add the information here and click in this input segment, this information will be sent to, how say here, vehicles in our vehicles controller. Sorry, yes, in this vehicles controller, and the vehicle controller will manage this information. Also, we have this input header here that have a value that is sent to our vehicles controller. Say update car classification. So when the vehicles controller receive the information of the classification name also receive this value, update car classification. And this is important because in the vehicles controller, we'll go to the switch and say, okay, update car classification. And what we do is say, okay, filter input. This filter input helps us to filter the information to be sure that there is no any code or that could damage your website or the database. Yeah, so it's very important to use filter input. And if it's empty, okay, will we return a message stored in a message variables that need to fill this input. Yes, and we will display this message here in the HTML file with this PHP statement, for example. Here. So, but if not empty, we'll call the reclassification and we'll use the classification name variable to first bind this value to the placeholder and then to submit and register in our database. Remember that this reclassification will return a 1 if there is one row changed. Yes. But if we don't get a 1, so we'll display a message that error message that will be displayed with this PHP statement again. But if this function return a 1, will be redirect to our vehicles management view, and we will see in the navbar the new car category. We will test that. Great. And if we want to add a new vehicle, we need to fill the form, and we will send information in the here, and but the value in the hidden input with the update inventory, and in the update inventory, okay, we'll go over there, and it's the same that we see before, but it's longer because have more input, with the difference that we have if we have success, we'll return a message that say, okay, thanks for registering.